2350 igneous rock. In the morning, Sunny observed the movements of the snow figures tensely. The clockwork giant was still in pursuit, occupying the volcano they had just left. The snow devil, meanwhile, remained where it had been, choosing not to abandon the axis tree. Sunny let out a relieved sigh. At this point, his position on the board was still precarious. He needed 3 moves to reach the Shrine of Truth, and so did the snow devil. Considering that it had the initiative, though, the guardian of the axis tree would have arrived there first if it wanted to. Now that it had skipped a move, though, Sunny had the initiative and would reach the shrine sooner. It was a bit unnerving, really, because he could not help but question the behavior of the adversary. Why had the snow devil remained passive? Was it because staying on the axis tree gave the snow domain some kind of advantage, or was it simply because the snow tyrant wanted to surround the shrine with more figures before mounting a 3-pronged attack to crush Sunny in one fell swoop? We'll see when we get there. There was something else for him to consider, as well. There were 8 more snow figures on the board that Sunny could not see. None of them had appeared, yet, and he suspected that they had been staying in their initial positions until now. But Sunny had a sinking suspicion that all of them had departed from their squares this morning, moving in the direction of the Shrine of Truth. There was a very simple reason why he believed that. Before, the snow tyrant had no way to guess where Sunny was going. After all, he had gone directly north after abandoning the Ash Castle, never changing direction. But then, Sunny turned west and killed the snow worm. That indicated his desire to conquer the Shrine of Truth, and gave the adversary an understanding of his plans, and, therefore, the ability to build an appropriate strategy. How troublesome. It would take the group of snow figures in the north from 4 to 6 moves to reach the Shrine of Truth. The group occupying the Shrine of Fear, meanwhile, would need from 6 to 7 moves to get there. There was the snow demon from the left corner to worry about, too, who could already be in the Shrine of Truth or en route to it. But Sunny was not too worried about a solitary figure. In any case, the coast was clear, for now, at least. We should enjoy these days of peace. Once they reached the shrine, it would most likely be one harrowing battle after another. So, it was good that Sunny had a few days to prepare. Most of the obsidian wasps had been destroyed in the battle against the snow worm. It was going to take some time for them to repair themselves. Additionally, he could dedicate this time to weaving. He could create more arrows for Kai and improve his bow. More importantly, there was the sacred soul shard in his possession now. Using it, he could create something truly special. But currently, Sunny was worried about something else. Looking away from the axis tree, he stared at Kai and nudged him on the shoulder. "Well, did you find it?" Kai coughed awkwardly. "Well, it's a big mountain, Sunny. Give me more time." Sunny blinked a couple of times. "What do you mean, it's a big mountain? You can see through a shish. You can see through rock. How hard can it be to find a piece of flawless white jade in this pile of obsidian and solidified magma?" Kai let out an exasperated sigh. "It would be less difficult if I could concentrate for a few seconds, Sunny." Sunny scoffed. "Oh, I see you know how to talk back now. Hey, look at Slayer, she has never talked back to me once." Slayer gave him a look, her black eyes full of such dreadful malice that he almost flinched. "I mean, she does drink my blood and tries to kill me every week. But at least she does it silently." The thing Sunny wanted Kai to find was, naturally, the figure of the snow beast he was supposed to receive for killing the colossal worm. He had been so engrossed in appreciating the aesthetic beauty of the sacred soul shard, and not at all overcome by greed, that he had forgotten about it entirely at the moment. And then, the entire mountain fell apart. Considering that they had to move on FGOM this newborn volcano by evening, Sunny felt quite pressed to find the jade figurine. After all, it was invaluable. He was already starting to grow nervous when Kai finally smiled. "There, I see it." He pointed in the Vagui direction where the snow worm had died. "It's right there, about 500 meters underground, stuck in igneous rock." Sunny let out a relieved sigh. "Good, good." Then, he fell silent. After a few moments of that, Kai finally asked, "So, are you going to dig it out?" "No, wait, you probably have better things to do." He looked at Slayer, then glanced away and added wistfully, "I guess, I should dig it out." Sunny remained silent for a while, then shook his head. "No, at least not yet. I have another candidate in mind." With that, he took a deep breath and turned into a shadow. Nothing happened for a long while. Then, suddenly, a flood of ash escaped from the shadow, rising into the sky like a towering pillar. Then the pillar of ash bent and plummeted down, twisting as it assumed form. Soon enough, the maw of an enormous black worm hit the slope of the mountain, easily burrowing into the seemingly impregnable rock. The shadow turned into a human once again. Sunny gave Kai a faltering smile, trying to hide how strained every fiber of his being was. That should be quicker, no. 2351 Sacred Shade. Sunny had never been able to summon the Shade of Condemnation, and that was not for the lack of trying. The shadow of the fallen god simply refused to submit to his will. It was too vast, too ancient, and too unfathomable to be compelled by his commands, while Sunny himself was not nearly powerful enough to assert his authority over it. In a sense, trying to deal with the shadow of condemnation was even more difficult than trying to command the fragment of the shadow realm. After becoming a supreme, Sunny could manipulate the fragment a little bit, enough so to separate it from the nameless temple, at least, even if it had felt like moving a mountain. The fragment was devoid of personality, though, while the shadow of condemnation, it had a mind of its own. Or a shadow of a mind of its own, at least. In any case, Sunny could not summon the shadow of condemnation. The dead god remained in the tranquil darkness of his soul, seemingly at peace, and since it was the only shade of the sacred rank there, Sunny simply assumed that he could not command shades of a higher rank than his own. After facing the snow worm in battle, though, he began to doubt that theory. The cursed beast had been frightening and dreadfully powerful, true, but not beyond the realm of understanding when compared to Sunny. More than that, Sunny had already experienced, if not overpowering, then at least defeating the creature's will. Plus, unlike condemnation, he had killed the snow worm with his own two hands, metaphorically speaking. In truth, naturally, he had killed it with his boot. So who was to say that he could not command its shade? How could the shadow of a mere beast rebel against the Lord of Shadows? So, that was exactly what Sunny tried to do. He tried to summon the shade of the snow worm and make it follow his commands. The result was both promising and disappointing. Just like condemnation, the snow worm, Abundance, refused to answer Sunny's call. Really, it was not even so much a refusal as it was a flat-out indifference. Both sacred shades simply ignored Sunny and his commands. However, unlike condemnation, Abundance was not so immense as to be indomitable. So, Sunny let his temper flare and descended upon the easy-minded shadow with all the ferocious power of his cold and imposing will. Come here, you. That, too, felt like moving a mountain. The thing, though, was that Sunny actually possessed enough willpower to move this particular mountain. And so, the mountain responded his call and came to him. Sunny felt a crushing pressure fall upon him the second the shadow of Abundance reluctantly passed through the gate of his soul and escaped into the miniature world of Ariel's game. That should be quicker, no. He pretended to smile while wincing on the inside. Controlling a sacred shade was different from controlling the other members of his Shadow Legion. Summoning his army of shades, even those of the supreme rank, felt effortless and natural. Summoning the Shade of Abundance, though, required him to keep overcoming its reluctance both continuously and meticulously. Needless to say, that put quite a strain on Sunny. In short, it was like riding an enraged bull. Sunny assumed that bulls were some kind of horse-like creatures who somehow managed to be even more ill-tempered than horses. Considering that the only horse he knew was Nightmare, that painted a pretty horrifying picture. He did not know why anyone sane would choose to ride such a creature, but the experience must have been similar to his attempts at keeping Abundance under control. There was another unexpected complication to summoning a sacred shade, as well. Usually, Sunny did not need to worry about essence while commanding his Shadow Legion. The flow of it he received from his shades was far greater than the expenditure needed to keep them summoned. The situation was reversed for the Shadow of Abundance, though. Not only was the Ash domain weak and feeble when compared to Sunny's actual domain, but keeping the damn worm summoned was consuming his essence at a disheartening rate. He would not be able to maintain the summoning indefinitely, he would not be able to maintain it for too long, even, which meant that calling upon sacred shades was a tool that had to be used strategically. It was still amazing news for Sunny, though. Not because Abundance would be able to excavate the volcano and retrieve its own figure faster than Kai would, naturally. Rather, it was because Sunny had been worried about the rank of his enemies for a while, now. It was a stroke of great luck that the first snow figure they had faced was a swarm of great beasts. Slaying them had not only weakened the snow domain, but also strengthened Sunny. If the rest of the nightmare creatures on the board had been cursed, however, then he would not have been able to grow his army exponentially. And that was what Sunny had been counting on. That was his only hope of winning the death game despite starting it in a tremendously disadvantaged position. In a position so hopeless and dire that it had made Ariel, the demon of dread, admit defeat. Look carefully, Snow Tyrant, whoever you are. Sunny's smile grew firmer as he watched Abundance burrow into solid rock. He was going to slay the abominations of the snow domain, one after another, and turn them into his own soldiers. And with those soldiers, he was going to lay siege the snow castle, and bring its rule down. Best of all, he was going to bring his army of sacred shades out of Ariel's game into the real world. So, the piece of Weaver's lineage was not the only boon he would carry away from this peculiar, lethal miniature world. How nice. There are 10 of them left, aren't there? Kai glanced at him dubiously. What are you thinking about? You look suspiciously cheerful. Sunny laughed happily. I was just thinking about how there are 10 more eldritch horrors waiting to kill us in horrendous ways. Isn't it wonderful? Kai exhaled slowly. Wonderful. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, he says. And he means it, too. That is not the word I would have used. 2352 Shrine of Truth. In the evening, they abandoned the newly formed volcano and moved west. And in the morning, the volcano was no more, conquered by the clockwork giant and transformed into a snow-covered mountain. Sunny quietly mourned the destruction of yet another manor he had built. What even is the point? Ah, I already miss my weirdly stiff, but overly soft sofa. He did not miss any memory more than he missed the shadow chair. Now that they had moved one more square west, the axis tree finally disappeared from view. That was a relief for Sunny, who did not need to feel the gaze of the snow devil anymore, but at the same time, it made him tense, because they had no way of knowing what the devil was doing now. That paled in comparison to the fact that they finally saw the Shrine of Truth, though. Well, Kai saw it, possibly Slayer, too. Sunny was simply comforted by the thought that it was there. He could see 8 surrounding peaks from the current square. The shrine was 2 moves away, diagonally northwest of their position. Diagonally southwest, meanwhile, similarly 2 moves away from the shrine. Are you certain? Kai nodded grimly. Yes, that should be the snow demon. Sunny frowned. The snow demon seemed to have abandoned the corner of the board, moving 1 square up. That made little sense, considering that it could have reached the Shrine of Truth already. Unless the snow tyrant wanted to use the shrine as a lure to trap Sunny and his ash beasts, with nowhere to retreat. If that was its plan, then the snow demon would politely let them pass instead of intercepting them come morning. Sunny sighed. So, what does it look like? Kai hesitated for a while. Well, I'm not sure. Sunny raised an eyebrow. How come? Don't you have the all-seeing eye? Kai smiled faintly. No, I merely have the most-seeing eye. He chuckled quietly and added in a neutral tone. Remember how you mentioned creepy wraiths made of snow? Sunny did vaguely remember suggesting something like that when they had first encountered the snow devil. Don't tell me. Kappa I nodded. Indeed, the snow demon is a creepy wraith made of snow. There is a blizzard raging on the mountains, and something is hiding in that blizzard. But I'm not sure what it is. Honestly, I only noticed its presence because the currents of snow seem unnatural, as if avoiding something, or someone. Sunny sighed. My damn tongue. Why couldn't I have suggested pretty wraiths made of snow instead of creepy ones? Or better yet, creepy wraiths made of delicious food. That'd be great, too. Kai scratched his head. Can wraiths be made of food? I thought wraiths were supposed to be intangible. Sunny grimaced. You make a fair point. He lingered for a moment, and then added in a disgruntled tone. Have I ever mentioned that I hate wraiths? I once spent a few thousand years with a wraith stuck in my head. It had its uses, sure, but by the dead gods. Having a head wraith is so obnoxious. I do not recommend. Kai stared at him silently for a while. Eventually, he asked in an even tone. Who do you hate more, wraiths or birds? Sunny blinked a couple of times. What an interesting question. He contemplated the answer, then shook his head decisively. Birds are still worse. Definitely. With that, he wandered off to find a place to rest. Sunny had been joking, but hunger was letting itself be known. It was merely a psychological dependency, of course, since he could sustain himself on nothing but his essence. Kai was far from being weakened by the lack of food, as well. Saints could go without sustenance for a long while. But everything was relative, of course. If it'd been Effie whom Sunny took with him on this journey, for example, she would have been dead or dying from hunger by now, Becca use of her flaw. The realization that he could have led one of his friends to their death, and had only been spared that guilt by dumb luck, made Sunny feel enraged. He had not felt that powerless in a long, long while. It was not a good feeling at all, but the truth was both obvious and ruthless. No matter how much Sunny had grown, and no matter how well he prepared, he was still nothing in front of beings like the Demon of Dread. The laws of a miniature realm Ariel had created to use as a toy were enough to render all Sunny's power meaningless. "I'll throw this damned board into the sky below after we get out of here." But of course, he wouldn't. Ariel's game was too precious. Once it was cleared of the frightening abominations left here by Ariel and Weaver, it could be populated by far more manageable monsters. Then, it could be used as a training tool for the saints who aspired to become sovereigns, or even for those supremes who had risen to their rank only recently. After all, while the Ash domain was a downgrade for Sunny, the experience of ruling it could be precious to someone else. He sighed and went about his business. In the morning, the snow demon remained where it was, indicating that Sunny's suspicion was true. The snow tyrant was leaving the road to the Shrine of Truth wide open, intending to completely surround them there. Sunny did not mind, though. In fact, that was exactly what he wanted to happen, as well. They traveled one more square west in the evening, reaching the westernmost column of squares. At dawn, the snow demon once again remained in place, while the clockwork giant once again conquered the volcano they had just left. That makes two. Once they reached the shrine, both the snow demon and the snow beast would make one move north, surrounding Sunny and his companions from south and east. That would only leave an enemy to close the blockade from the north, and then, the three of them could attack the shrine together. Sunny did not know who the enemy would be, but he was going to find out soon. Finally, on their sixth sunset in Ariel's game, they reached the Shrine of Truth. Stepping on the slope of the Lonesome Mountain, Sunny knew that this was where the decisive battles of this death game were going to be fought. He sighed heavily. Game on, I guess.